So if you've seen any of my previous videos, you know that I love a great book series. In fact, I love a great book series over a standalone just about every time. Why? If I'm in a setting I enjoy with characters I enjoy and an author who tells a story that I enjoy, I want to stay there longer. Same reason that I enjoy a great television drama over a movie every single time. So these are my top 10 book series that I hope to read in 2022. Before I get started, please give me a like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you hit the little bell icon, you'll get a notification the next time I upload a video. You can also follow me on Twitter and Goodreads for more content. So last year I read all of, or at least a great portion of 15 different book series. So I figured 10 is an easy goal. I have no doubts that I will read 10 book series. Now, will it be these 10? I can't say for sure. Now, this is not a ranking like number 1 is my most want to read and number 10 is my least of these 10. This is more a ranking of the higher on the list, the more likely I am to read them. I don't set a schedule when I read. I may have an idea of things I might want to read next, but often my year takes tangents. So I might get interested in an author or something like that, and it takes me in a whole different direction with my reading. I think that's one reason why I'm able to read 100 books in a year, is that I'm not constrained to having to read anything. It's simply, what do I want to read next? That's what I read next. So this order is basically the 10 that I think are most likely to happen in the order that they may happen. I will say that the first first four are guaranteed because I already own them. So the first 4 will definitely happen. The 3 after that, I would be highly surprised if I don't get to them. And then the final 3, we'll see where it goes. So the first one is a book series. I actually started this one already. So this one's a guarantee. And this is Lloyd Alexander's The Chronicles of Prydane. This is a 5-book series. And it's a fantasy series, and it's kind of a middle grade series. I'm reading this for nostalgia's sake. In 6th grade, when I first entered middle school, went to the library to pick out a new book. I was always a voracious reader. I read so much. I don't remember a time where I couldn't read, and was a big fan up to that point, mostly of mysteries. The elementary school type of mysteries that you would expect at that age. I read a lot of Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew, Encyclopedia Brown, that sort of thing. Well, in 6th grade, I picked up Lloyd Alexander's The Book of Three, and I loved it. And I read all 5 of these Chronicles of Prydane, and just really enjoyed this series, really enjoyed a new genre. It was the first time I ever read the fantasy genre. And I remember in 6th grade, I went from Chronicles of Prydane directly to Narnia, directly to Middle-earth, and haven't looked back. Although I took a break from reading fantasy quite a bit as an adult, I'm now back reading it quite a bit, and it is my favorite genre. So I've already read the first 2, so I can say, just mini review, I really like these. They're children's books, so these are not going to stand up against Wheel of Time or Tolkien or Song of Ice and Fire. But they are delightful, and I'm very much enjoying these. So this is the first book series that I hope to read, which I will read. So my second book series that I hope to read this year, which I will read, again, these top 4 are definites. You know that some Robin Hobb was going to be on this list. If you saw my Red Fury Book Awards, if you haven't, go check that one out. I really liked that video. That was a lot of fun to shoot. I love Robin Hobb. She's an author I just discovered last year, and I read the Farseer Trilogy and the Live Ship Traders Trilogy last year. She's an author, frankly, when I start to talk about her, I start to feel like an adolescent talking about his crush. And I kind of stumble and stammer and stutter, and I don't know what to say because I just love her as an author, and I love just about everything she does, from her characters to her setting to her oh-so-perfect prose. So the series that I want to read, and I will read very soon, is the Tawny Man Trilogy. And the first book is Fool's Errand. The second book is The Golden Fool. And the final book is Fool's Fate. And this is very much a sequel to the Farseer Trilogy, and I can't wait to hang out with Fitz again and just be immersed in that world and soaking up everything that Robin Hobb has to offer in this series. All right, number 3. Again, these top 4 will happen because I own them already. Number 3, where'd number 4 come from? Number 3 is The Earthsea Cycle by Ursula K. Le Guin. Have this beautiful illustrated edition that I bought using some gift cards that I received for Christmas. So I'm really excited to read these 6 novels by Ursula K. Le Guin. As I mentioned in my book haul video, I took a break from reading fantasy, and I'm trying to fill in the gaps. Not just the modern people that I've missed, the authors like Hobb and Abercrombie and some others that I'll delve into later this year, but some of the classic voices that I missed. Ursula K. Le Guin was one such voice, and I've heard such great things about this, how influential this was, how it influenced things like Harry Potter and a lot of other authors, and I'm just so looking forward to jumping in and reading the books of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. All right, number 4, can't all be fantasy. So number 4 is a murder mystery series by Dennis Lehane, and it is his Kenzie and Gennaro novels. He's written 6 of them. I've read 4 of them, a little out of order, but I enjoy following Patrick Kenzie and Angela Gennaro, a team of private investigators in Boston, and solving these dark, dark murder mysteries. These are kind of some harsh stories, but Lehane is a master. So I'm going to read the last 2 that I've not read. It's 3 and 6 in the series, because again, I read them out of order, but Sacred is the 3rd one. I'm looking forward to reading that one. And then the latest one, I don't know if it's the last one or just the latest one he's written, but Moonlight Mile is the other one. So much looking forward to reading some Dennis Lehane. I haven't read him in a couple years, and he's my favorite of this genre. Hey, let me interrupt myself. There are 2 more series that I'm guaranteed to read that I announced on my video last week for my read-along. And that is the Ender Quintet, which I guess it is called, the 5 books of the Ender's Game series, and the Shadow series. So I'll put a link up here to see my announcement and the reading order for that if you'd like to join me on that. I'd love for you to join me, even just for Ender's Game, which I'll be reading in February. So that's at least 2 more. So there's actually 12 on this list today rather than 10. Okay, so that was the top 4. Those are guaranteed. I will read all 4 of those series this year. Next 3, I would say, are 99% sure. These are 3 series that I frankly would just be shocked if I got to the end of 2022 and hadn't read them. 5 and 6 are more Robin Hobb, and they are the final 2 series in the realm of the Elderlings. Her 5 interconnected series in this world. The 4th series is a 4-book series entitled The Rainwild Chronicles, and I think it follows more of the stories begun in the Live Ship Traders trilogy. So definitely looking forward to going back to that setting in the world. And then the final trilogy is the Fitz and the Fool trilogy. So those are 5 and 6 on this list, and I would be shocked if I don't read those by the end of the year. All right, number 7 is The Poppy War by R.F. Quang. Rebecca Quang wrote a fantasy series that is steeped in Chinese history, and it sounds like the perfect book for me. If you've seen anything I talk about fantasy a lot, but I talk about historical fiction quite a bit as well. They're my 2 favorite genres, and this seems like just the perfect marriage between the 2. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews with this series, especially with the conclusion, but I've heard enough that I'm really intrigued, and I have a feeling that it's just going to be a series that I personally enjoy quite a bit. So I'm looking forward to reading the 3 books in the Poppy War trilogy. All right, so that takes us through 7. These last 3, these are less likely, but still at the top of the list, at least to make this top 10 list here in January. The first one is, you see by Tolkien collection here, it's not big enough. So number 8 on this list is more Tolkien. You see I have a couple editions of Lord of the Rings here, and the Silmarillion, and of course The Hobbit. I have The Fall of Gondolin, which I find is part of a 3-book series called The Great Tales. So I want to buy that hardcover, of course, box set of The Great Tales, which is Fall of Gondolin, Beren and Luthien, and one other that I can't remember. So I want to read those. I also want to read The Unfinished Tales. There's a great illustrated edition by Alan Lee that I want to get. And then another one that came out a few years ago called Tales of the Perilous Realm, which is a lot of the shorter fiction that Tolkien wrote. So just more of the expanded Tolkien world. I don't think I'll get into the History of Middle-earth series quite yet. Those are like 10 or 15 books and look kind of daunting. But I do have a goal at some point to have on a shelf a Tolkien shelf. So I want to get a little step closer to that this year and read more Tolkien. All right, 9 and 10. So number 9 is Joe Abercrombie. I think it's called the Shattered Sea Trilogy, and the first book I think is called Half a King. This is a trilogy, fantasy trilogy that's not set in his world of the First Law. And I originally had seen this marketed as YA, and then it seems, doing a little bit of research and seeing some people talk about it, that it's not YA. So it's Joe Abercrombie, I want to read it. So that's number 9 on the list. I read a lot of Abercrombie last year, so I try to spread it out. I don't want to do what I did last year. Last year I read so much Sanderson, and then I got to the end, and there's none left. And I kind of want to save a little bit of Abercrombie if I can. Same thing with Robin Hobb. I'll finish Rome and the Elderlings, and then I'll take a break before I go back and finish some of the other stories that she's written, some of the shorter stories and so forth, and other series. But I don't want to finish Joe right away. So that's why I'm putting this kind of at the end of the list, the Shattered Sea Trilogy. Number 10, this one could shoot up the list at any time. Number 10 is also by Joe Abercrombie, and that's the Age of Madness Trilogy. The only reason I'm putting this one off is kind of a silly book collector reason. I like as much as possible for my books to match. So I have my Stephen King hardcovers, my Sanderson hardcovers, and so forth. All of my Joe Abercrombie, the 6 novels I own of him, are the very tall trade paperbacks. So it may seem silly to some of you, but I'm waiting until the last book comes out on that tall trade paperback before I buy the series. I could buy them all in hardcover and read them all now and enjoy them, but then it wouldn't quite match on the shelf, and I'm, I guess, a little bit OCD about that. So I want to get all of the matching sets. Based on previous production dates, it seems like it's usually 11 or 12 months after the hardcover. So if that schedule holds true, October or November, they will put out The Wisdom of Crowds, which is the last book in that series, in that format. So at that point, as soon as they're available, I probably would almost guarantee that I'll buy them and read them. So maybe a little bit more likely than number 10 on this list, but I am looking forward to, as soon as those are out in trade paperback, reading all of the Age of Madness series. So that's my top 10. I'd love to hear 2 things from you in the comments. Number 1, if you've read any of these, your thoughts, what you thought of them, if you love them. Maybe especially Poppy War, because that's probably the most divisive of all of those ones I talked about. The other thing I'd love to hear about in the comments is book series that you'd love to read this year. I'd love to see what you're reading as well. That's one of my favorite things about interacting with you here and on Goodreads especially, is to see what you're reading. But as always, thank you for watching. Until next time, goodbye.